Hello and welcome to Soft Serve. My name is Mads Williams and I am a guide to female sensual energy. Today's episode is like a little masterclass in surrender. And why I love this topic so much is that surrender is never just about lying back and taking it. There is an active role that comes in receiving, but also actioning to be creating a life that you are actively involved in and that you actually fucking love. So, responding to what is, today I'm going to speak on lots of different micro topics, and you'll get a little taster of my brain, how I start using one aspect of life to teach or show me or reveal what's happening in another. So it all started with last week. I spoke at a beautiful event hosted by my dear friend Zoe Swan called Inspiring Stories Kerno. And the idea is that regular people get up and share 15 minutes of their life, a 15-minute story of something significant to them. And so I spoke of my journey from leaving Australia essentially to how did I get into this work. And as I've talked about on the podcast before, I'm currently learning to shamanic journey, which is another way to access spirit. It's another way to receive messages. And I've always been a very spiritual person, but more and more I rely on the nudges, the whispers, the clear ideas of creativity that drop in. I rely on them to guide me to what I'm supposed to be sharing and how I'm supposed to be supporting people in my life. So, just before my talk last week, I received this really clear message in my journey that this thing I'd had a lot of resistance to, which was delivering soft serve in person, was coming in louder and louder that it was something to consider. But more than that, I was given the idea of how I would actually hold it and host it. And once I have an idea, I truly feel unstoppable. It's before that point where it's just my brain. And if it's just my brain, then it's never that enjoyable. It never really works out. And I'm climbing an uphill battle because I'm constantly trying to reinvent something that hasn't been delivered. So the day before this talk, I received the clear instructions for what that might look like if I was to hold space in Cornwall. And so what I love about the way that I work with my intuition is that I'm always actively trying to be the best version I can be. Therefore, I set goals and I have outcomes I'm working towards. But if it feels like the flow is shifting, if it feels like I need to respond to the plan, I do. So I've been speaking a lot about how my online portal for soft serve was running in June. And actually, it hasn't been feeling that electric. The dates and the people's availability that are already come on board is really working towards August. So I just wanted to say, in terms of responding to what is, I will be moving my online portal to begin in August and looking at starting an in-person soft serve offering in June. So in real time, this is how I work with the universe. This is how I take feedback, I implement, and I also do not judge the process. I do not judge that I change my mind 100 times because I know it's not coming from a place of, it's not coming from a lack of commitment. If anything, it's coming from this ability to understand that I am not God. And anytime I try to pretend I am and hold on really fucking tight, that's when things do uproot me. That's when I am having more resistance because I'm not actually being present to what is trying to come through. So, this you can imagine applies so much to sexuality. This is such an important tool to master in your life, but also to master with your lover. It's one of those really interesting things. Since I started doing this sexuality work, because I've activated so much beautiful sensation in my vagina, it means that I'm not so fixated on orgasm. I've spoken about that a lot, but the beautiful thing that gifts to a partner, to a lover, is that you actually get to be present to what you're creating between the two of you. I think sometimes when we're focused on orgasm, it is like a checklist, and it's putting people in their heads. And as soon as you're in your head, you're already out of your heart, you're out of your genitals, you're out of the energy, you're out of the situation. So when I think about this idea of surrender, what does that actually mean in sexuality? I think so much of surrendering and opening is actually being able to be mindful of what you're creating. So responding to what is such a beautiful concept to take to bed. It's this idea that when you're with someone, you can then slow down. I've said to lovers recently, are we in a rush? Because that's my way truly of asking. I'm greedy. I could be in bed with someone all fucking day. I love it. It's actually the most beautiful thing when you have hours and hours and hours of time together. And especially once you've taken orgasm off the table as the main event, it means that you're alleviating a lot of performance anxiety for men in particular. And that's something that I don't say actively with my words, but I imply it by slowing us down or allude to it by asking those types of questions. Or I like to bring in things like massage or conversation or even a fucking dance break. There is no part of me and my identity and my essence that isn't invited to the bedroom. And if anything, it's actually the place now where the most of me is revealed. I've been thinking about that lately, actually, that, you've all heard me talk about how I don't have casual sex, but that doesn't mean that I'm not experiencing moments with people who I don't know that intimately outside of our sexual experiences together. And it's been such an interesting reflection to think about how some of these men who I guess I don't know that well would have met a version of me or the real me in one night or one day of being together in a way that's so much deeper than my ex-boyfriend who I was with for 9 years. And that's not to do with them, although the men are beautiful. It is to do with the journey you go on as a woman to de-armor yourself, to tap into the parts of you that have been hiding, to reveal that dorky side or that lumpy side. I do think that there is something in getting so comfortable with your anatomy, getting comfortable with your asshole, getting comfortable with how beautiful your yoni is. I will never speak a bad word about our genitals. But if you're someone who currently is disconnected from the beauty that exists between your legs, there is a jumping off place to sit with the discomfort and work towards getting to a loving place and a place of worship. But once you've seen all angles of you physically and in a way that we normally hide or repress or are disconnected to, then it actually isn't that much of a jump to show someone that really dorky aspect of your personality as well. I talk a lot about confidence that comes from sexuality. And what I really loved about speaking last week was that there's so much about my life in Cornwall that is fairly naked. And I felt like, and there was this tiny part of my brain that thought, I wonder if this talk filled in the gaps for a few people. I think we do walk around still bringing in old paradigm ways of observing or judging. And so that voice that might have used to wonder if people felt like I was showing off or trying to get attention, for a long time that has been replaced with one, an attitude of not caring, but two, this deep relaxation that comes from embodiment. But I think there is something in hearing women speak about their own experiences with sex and their body where it all starts making sense. And suddenly you understand, that is why they are able to move through the world. It actually has nothing to do with anybody else's gaze. It comes back to their relationship with themselves. And so I talk routinely about creating an army of women obsessed with themselves. And that is the energy and the frequency below it. It's just self-fucking love and acceptance. And that doesn't mean that we don't have shadow sides and there aren't parts of us that we're working to improve or look at. It doesn't make us a perfect person. It makes us a real loving custodian of our soul in this lifetime. So responding to what is also becomes responding to what is your body shape, what is your current health level, what is the genetics that you were given in this lifetime. Responding to what is rather than being in resistance to. How do we love ourselves without the Botox? How do we love ourselves without dyeing of the hair? Responding to what is can start at acceptance before it moves all the way to adoration. But the body fucking loves and responds so well to adoration. So if that's not a hard jump, I would certainly encourage it. Another thing that's really interesting about reflecting on this topic about what is, responding, what's the universe sending you, what's in your current orbit. I do a lot of work with To Be Magnetic, which is a manifestation process that's helping to rewire your subconscious limiting beliefs so that you can actually manifest the things that your soul craves rather than putting out your wounds and your blocks and bringing things in that are going to reinforce that. And perhaps it's not even reinforcing, it's offering you an opportunity to look at it and to heal it. I love thinking about life like that. What if everything is in my favor? It doesn't mean I don't have total meltdowns and absolutely stomp my feet like a brat in between. But once I've felt that feeling and been able to change my perspective, it's a really powerful question. So, To Be Magnetic talks about this concept of love and money and how the two share the same energetic themes in your life. So, for example, if you are blocked in one element with love, it's often a theme that will present in the way that you make money, put your work out, or find security that way. And the reason for that is that love and money do really come down to how are we being validated? How are our needs being met? How are we being seen? Are we safe? So recently, I've been looking at all the ways that I try to control, particularly in love. It's this really interesting thing where in sex, I've really learned to be in a surrendered feminine state. It's probably why I love it so much because I can default to controlling my life and gripping when it comes to me having an experience or a reality that I really fucking love and enjoy. It's probably no news to you. I've talked about it all the time, how fiercely dependent or protective I am of my alignment. So in sex, I'm all for losing control. I'm all for handing the reins over once I feel safe enough. And I find because I'm so discerning or particular about who I'm having sex with, once I'm actually in that space, they've passed enough tests that I am really happy to embody that version of femininity and be in that dance with them. But all the ways that I control really show up in more of the dating, all the day-to-day life. I talk often about, oh, we don't really make sense on land. We make sense horizontal or in the real world. I'm really good at, or bad perhaps, at putting those walls up and protecting my reality and my heart really fiercely. And so this interesting thing happened where in my dating, I've been really confronted with the idea of, can you get out of your own way? Can you step into or out of the comfort zone? Can you relax? Can you actually let somebody lead in real life, not just in bed? And I've loved watching it show up in my work as well. For a really long time, I've been really clear about no, soft serve's not for that audience, or no, 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 I'm not ready to work with my older women. No, 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 I can't do in person. And what I love is when the universe works through you essentially. And that's what this work has done for me. That's what my connection to my body and my intuition and my sexuality has done for me. It's allowed me to be a much greater vessel for how the universe wants me to serve. There's no coincidence that soft serve has the word serve in it because it's forever going to remind me to be a spiritual vessel for the divine. And so, just in the way that my love life, I guess, has shown these themes, that's happened as well in the reality of my female sexuality contributions. Speaking to a room full of strangers that weren't necessarily what I would have considered my target market, just purely because that didn't feel completely safe, or I maybe hadn't considered I would be for everyone. There's this default setting that I can go into because all my work has always been so niche and I live life quite unusually. It's much safer and easier to be in the story that, oh, I'm different and I'm not for everyone. So being able to speak and have this really beautiful reaction and get all these nudges that, yeah, it's time. It's time to do in person. It's time to shift your online offering so that you can make space for this thing you've been resisting. It's time to let men have more of a chance in your life than you have been open to recently. It's time in so many ways to respond to what is and not grip, not try and be the narrator or guide the story. Because at the end of the day, why would we really want to do that? We're in our own movie to experience the joy of the twists and turns and the plot twists. And so, really being a passenger is such a beautiful thing. When I was studying human design, the founder, Ra, he speaks of this passenger consciousness. So the idea is that once you actually learnt to tap into your body's intuition, then you are really just allowing your body to be the vehicle, and your intuition, like a compass or a magnet, will literally guide you through life. It will drive you around. It will deliver you to the right people. It will deliver you to the right opportunities. And you just get to sit in the passenger seat thinking, oh, this is fucking unusual. Or, whoa, that took a turn. Oh my gosh, how amazing. I can't believe we're going there. Passenger consciousness is such a beautiful extension of respond to what's happening, but you also feel really active in it because although you are surrendered to sitting in that side seat, you are making sure you are actioning based on the signals and information your body is getting. So this is why I will always come back to that idea of active participant in your life that is unfolding with the divine as the great creator and storyteller for where you're supposed to go. Finally, one of my favorite topics on this idea of surrender, and something I have actively played with for the last 18 months, is this idea of he's just not that into you, or letting the masculine lead. And so this works really well for me. I just want to put that out there. You play with it yourself. You work out what feels good. You work out your level of modern feminist with powerful babe to being actually in connection to what feels good in your system. I think sometimes we can walk around using the trope of modern feminists to action things that actually feel really shit. And once it comes out, or once you live it a little longer, you realize, oh, it was chasing energy all along, disguised as confident girl bossing in the modern age of dating. But that's just my personal opinion and experience. So for me, he's just not that into letting men lead. Let's go back to the beginning. I personally had a very deep wound in my dating that would show up, which was this feeling of rejection. So I would feel like men were really engaged and I was the prize, and they were pursuing in the way that men beautifully pursue, only to reveal myself. And then it felt like that was too much, too big, too intense, too greedy, too whatever, throw in any word, too much for men, and they would pull back. And so in that chapter, because it triggered such a feeling of unlovability and being unwanted, the only way I could try and create equilibrium and balance was to go in harder, was to try and get them back, was to try and tantalize them with a naked photo or a suggestion for a date or a silly meme or who knows. I was really, then when they moved their energy away, I dialed it up. The easiest way to refer to that is desperate energy. So when I was playing with the energetics of masculine and feminine, and to be clear, we have both, We are a combination of divine masculinity and divine femininity, which is why I talk about surrender and action together all the time. We do need to take steps towards creating a life we love. We do need to create. We do need to produce. We do need to step out towards and say yes to the things that we really are having a positive reaction to. But in this situation, I'm going to talk much more about that idea of when I'm really tapped into my feminine and a man is really working from his masculine. And let's be clear, there is the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine, and then there's also the divine. So we are bringing consciousness to that as well. It's not that we're always perfect or we're always flawed, but there is that beautiful spectrum that we usually slip in and out of, to be honest. So when I was in that place, that rejection wound being triggered and that desperate energy, that's the wounded feminine feeling used. That is me feeling like I've been totally neglected. That's the whore coming out. That is that deep pain of being cast aside once someone has had their way with me or gotten what they wanted. But it also then brings out that nag and that strong, fierce, pained woman who is angry and moving towards you doesn't feel that good to receive. So even though what you're trying to create is more connection, you're actually creating more tension and disharmony and pushing people away. So once that happened one too many times for my liking, I started seeing that that's my pattern and that's mine to work on. And so for a year, I went really deep into it. And honestly, it wasn't that I decided to be celibate with other partners. I've talked a lot before about how I reframed having sex with myself. So actually, I had the most sex of my life in that year without being with a lover. But what it meant was I was so fucking bullseyed over whether or not to say yes to people asking me out. I was really clear that I had work to do, and therefore it was only if my sacral, if my gut intuition was really excited about the idea of going on a date with someone who asked. And so in that space of a year, I learned really quickly how that felt. And so it became a beautiful practice to say no. And in the no, it became a fertile ground for me to do my own work around this. And just for people interested, like for that looked like meditations with To Be Magnetic about finding the root cause of that and reprogramming it. It looked like taking lots of flower remedies to address the shame and the rejection and the heartbreak. It looked like in-person plant medicine ceremonies that were really tailored towards restoring love back in my body and looking at the ancestral wounds that ran through my family. And it also looked like addressing the relationship with my mother, which I've spoken about on a recent episode, all about intimacy. So when it felt like I actually had some opening in my life for dating earlier this year, Soft Serve was created, it was in the world, I was working with the peaches, and it felt like, okay, I might be ready to create some space. I might be able to take this fuck off sticker that I've had on my head for a full year off my forehead and allow the uni to do what she does best and send me who she wants to send me. And so in that gesture, which was genuinely a declaration to myself and to the outside world, I felt the energy and momentum shift. And I guess you could declare that dating season was open once more. But this time, everything felt really different. This notion of letting men lead and being the ones to reach out, it was no longer a game, but it was an ability to be so in my core and my center that I knew I didn't need anything from men in the way that I had previously. And so I could no longer wait, but I could be present and active in my own life and receive their invitations and their pursuing of me almost as though in the background. And I don't mean that to diminish my connection with people or to take away from the fact that these are beautiful souls in their own right, but just the difference from being a woman who has so often felt like there was a huge void if I wasn't in partnership, or the Disney princess trope. Am I ever going to be chosen? Will the love of my life appear? Being raised as female means that we have so much deeply encoded in our psyche, but also our DNA. It's actually not that long ago that we weren't being married off for survival. And so when I say responding to what is, letting men lead and allowing them to message first, allowing them to rush in and make moves, I really speak on that as this beautiful gift it has given to me to rebalance my energy, and also, therefore, going back to being a vessel, be free to contribute in the way I'm supposed to. I am so much more available for my work and serving when I am not completely distracted by men. Even in dynamics now that I'm really fucking enjoying, I'm really clear on not filling all the space in between with them, with messaging, with thinking of them, with daydreaming. The same rules apply. I am filling my cup up, my sensuality and my sexuality from myself. And then it is a fucking joy to gift that to someone in the present, responding to what is. If they want that, then they can ask, then they can arrange to be with me. I'm not just available in the way that I used to be in the hope that someone wouldn't forget about me. This may be a bit irrelevant now, considering Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have now broken up. But one of the sexiest things I ever heard about relationships was Nicole saying that she doesn't text Keith Urban. And I love that, because actually in that space that we create, we're not projecting onto someone. We're not filling in this perfect version of a man that then can only disappoint us when they're there in the flesh. We are allowing our beings to be present to our physical connection and our physical relationship, and therefore prioritizing being in union together. I fucking love that. I think if we applied more of that to modern dating, we would have such a different experience. It's like this idea of how my grandmother used to date when she lived on a dairy farm in Scotland. The farmers next door would call up asking for milk, and that was the clue that actually they wanted to ask her out. There used to be so much charm. And I wonder if getting rid of texting and not being so available in that way would bring a bit more beautiful romance back to the way we dance with life. So this is another reason I really love that idea of he's just not that into you, because you get to the end result so much faster. I think about all the men that I chased, and actually it was really fucking clear where they were at. The fact they were pulling away was the answer, but I wasn't ready to receive it. So there is this element of being really responsive to the reality. And that doesn't mean it won't be painful. But for me, it allows me to stay in a power zone that means that actually, if they're not that into me, I will survive. And I'm very conscious. I'm always catching my own words, and I'm always inspecting where am I in protection and where am I keeping my walls up and where am I not open to vulnerability. And so that is present, right? Yes, I'm very conscious to inspect that. But the beauty of it is that it just leads to more interesting people. It's so much more interesting having women inspired by their own lives and their own activities rather than wondering when he's going to call. Anytime I feel myself in this feeling of waiting, it's my clue to go and do something interesting. It also reinforces this feeling I have about, no, I'm not too much. No, I am perfect as I am. And in the same way that I apply any kind of alignment, if it's not aligned for someone else, then it's not aligned for me. So if I am no longer somebody wants to see, then that alignment is really important that it's respected. And that notion that rejection is redirection. So the sooner someone else knows it's not for them by it being, I guess, pursuing something intimately, then the better. So that becomes this other beautiful metric in my life, If I can trust my alignment so strongly, well, then I need to be able to gift that to all of my friends, all of my lovers, all of the people in my life that I'm interacting with. If we all managed our own alignment with kindness, I'm not talking about running around here being assholes, but I'm talking about knowing what it feels like in our body to respond to our intuition and therefore be actioning things from the place that is not our brain, but from true spiritual guidance, then we would have a really different, beautiful reality. So there are so many sides of this notion to dating when you're working with it from this concept of spirituality, of masculine and feminine energetics, from your own power, from your own protection, that just become really beautiful. They become beautiful guiding tools rather than overwhelming plot twists and turns that are fueling the drama-filled catch-ups with your girlfriends. And don't get me wrong, there's often a season for drama, and why not enjoy the beautiful endorphins and hormone shifts and fears that comes from being intimate with someone. But as you know, I'm much more interested in the deeper ways that impacts and changes your life and not just derails your purpose or your contribution for a little bit of spice. I've been there, I've done that, I've lived it for the experience, and I'm much more interested in soul to soul connections and matching at the frequency that I'm at. So if I'm taking care of my cleanness, my alignment, my joy, my purpose, well, then I trust that the certain caliber of partners coming in are at that level. So have a think. Where is it time to pull back or pull into yourself, whether that's with your own sexual practice, whether that's with spending some time intimately with your body, whether that's just carving out space and creating that artwork or going for a long drive and singing at the top of your lungs. Or instead of waiting for that message, putting your phone on airplane mode and going for a long walk, or asking your friends to go and do that date thing that you've been really wanting to do with this potential lover or partner. There are so many times last year when I was still working through this rejection wound and feeling deep loneliness that I would ask myself, what do I want to do today? And often it was lie naked on the beach with someone and make out. So I would say to myself, okay, let's go and sunbathe with our top off. And then when I get home with you, boom, we're having an hour in the bedroom, just you and me. And I would make it a priority. I spoke recently on Instagram about how we're no longer out here looking, we are becoming. When we become the person we want to be, or when we feel our life and do the things that we're missing, when we feel the void ourselves, we no longer feel that there is a void because there isn't. We've actually taken our pain as clues for what our soul wants, and we have gifted it to our soul. And then what happens is you get to attract everything you are actually craving, but it's no longer becoming because you need it or you're codependent or you will die without it. It's just amplifying all that you already are, amplifying more of the good stuff, improving your life and bringing tremendous joy and benefits and excitement. And so that, my friends, is the true notion of friends with benefits. And I really, really hope you enjoy. I will be sharing so much more about how we can work together with SoftServe. Watch this space for August dates for online. This will continue to be the 10-week program. We will go in. There will be gorgeous modules. You will be learning about your body. You will be changing how you see yourself, how you see your partner, how you see potential partners. And you will be learning to really embody feminine power and walk the walk. So that I am so excited to walk alongside many peaches with when the time comes. And if you are based in Cornwall, I will be contacting you very shortly. I have a list of emails. If anyone feels like they've missed out or they want to be included in all the updates, please feel free to DM me your email address. You can, on my website, madswilliams.com, find the contact form and send it to me that way. But as always, thank you for being here. This is my greatest joy, sharing life experiences with you all and allowing sexuality to become as normal as talking about your favorite coffee shop. So it really means the world to have you here. And I can't wait to continue doing this, to continue speaking about topics. If there's anything you want to know about, any topic that's like really piquing your interest, or something that's coming up in your own life that you'd love a second opinion on, you know where to find me. I will see you next week. Sending so much love and thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. It means so much. Okay, until next time. Bye.